Welcome back to Excellence in Motion, the Youth Spotlight series. I am your host, Angelina, and this is a space where we shine a light on young people, redefining what it means to succeed and inspire. Today, we are diving into the story of Evan Dozier, an 18-year-old musician, producer, and community builder who just graduated from North Allegheny High School and is heading to Berklee College of Music this fall. Evan has already built something remarkable right here in Pittsburgh, a platform called the Lounge PGH, where he brings together singers and instrumentalists from across the city to create fresh takes on jazz and popular music. With over 2 million views on YouTube and nearly 10,000 followers, his work is proof that youth creativity has no limit. Evan, welcome to the show. First off, congratulations on all of your accomplishments so far and on your next steps heading to Berklee. Before we get into everything you've been building, I'd love to start off from the beginning. Music clearly plays a huge role in your life. So could you tell us a little bit about your first introduction to music and how it has grown into the passion that you have today?
Yeah, thank you. That was a great intro. I think my first introduction to music that I can remember, I know my dad's always really been into jazz. I remember every summer, like 3, 4 years old, my dad would always play. I don't know if you know Miles Davis, jazz trumpet player. He has this album called Kind of Blue. And I remember every summer he would just play that album straight through, just on repeat. We'd be outside on like the patio, like eating dinner and stuff. And my mom is sick of the album because he played it so much. But I think that was my like first introduction to music, especially jazz. Both my parents are pretty much into music. I started piano when I was like 8 years old, I think. And I did classical for about 5 years and then switched to guitar after that later down the line. But yeah, I think that point is really when I first was introduced to it.
So you've studied classical piano,
hmm
and even jazz guitar.
hmm
So what drew you to these different styles, and how do you think they've shaped your sound now?
When I initially started, I mean, part of it was I did want to play piano, and part of it, I think my parents thought it was a good idea to start with classical just for like the foundation. I think that helped me a lot, technique-wise, and just understanding like reading music, just the fundamentals and stuff. After about 5 years, I still liked classical, but I did kind of want to branch out a little bit more, and I think that's when I started to get into jazz piano, and jazz guitar. I had some really good jazz instructors, and it's definitely a different way of like looking at music. Improvisation, is a big factor of it, which I think influences me, and just being able to express yourself through your instrument is really what's like exciting to me.
That's very interesting, and I definitely admire your dedication.
Thank you.
As someone who dropped piano after learning how to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, the alphabet, Baba Black Sheep,
All you need.
which are all conveniently the same melody.
Mm-hmm.
I can't read music to save my life, and
Yeah.
so I think that that's definitely something that takes a lot of dedication, especially being a kid getting into it, having zero discipline at all. Or maybe that was just me, but
Oh, me too. I never practiced when I was little. It was bad.
well, you did something right. But I know your dad introduced you to jazz really early. So how has family shaped your musical journey?
I think that the most important part is they've always been super supportive. I know a lot of people who do music, their families aren't always too supportive because there's usually that like stigma that, oh, it's not like a real job or career. And especially both my parents, they're lawyers, so I would assume that they would be very against, the musical journey. But I think every step of the way, I've been fortunate enough they've funded me for like guitars, equipment and stuff. And even with the creation of the lounge and stuff, just getting that studio equipment, they've always been there. And whatever I needed to progress, they've been able to like provide, and emotionally too. I mean, they've always been like trying to push me further, and kind of like inspire me to keep going. I think that's the big thing.
That's really great. And I think that having a strong family support system definitely shows in a lot of your work. And so that is wonderful that you have that support system. Are you an only child?
I am, yeah.
Oh.
I do have a older cousin who's kind of like a sister because we grew up with each other, and she's like lived with me for like 5 or so years. So she is kind of like my sister, but technically I am an only child.
Oh, see, that might be why.
That might be why.
So I really want to talk about the lounge because that is something that jumped out during, my background check of you.
hmm
And it was very interesting to me. So what really stands out about you? You're not just making music, you're also creating a platform for others. So just give me like the background of the lounge and where that idea came from and how it's grown.
Yeah. I think it originated with my friend. His name is Christopher Petraglia. He's a like cinematographer, and so he's been doing like short films and different types of videos and stuff for a couple years now. And we've been like best friends for basically our whole lives. And I think about a little bit over a year ago, like last May, I think. He had a video. It was for like one of his classes in school where he recorded this like music video, and it was like a Boys to Men End of the Road kind of a cover thing. And he asked me to be on set for like the audio production part of it, because that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years, is like producing and audio engineering and stuff. So I was there to record. It was like 5 singers. They only had like a lead sheet for it, so I kind of had to write down like the harmonies and stuff on the spot, which was a fun experience. It was like an 8-hour shoot of just continuous recording and singing. But I think that collaboration was our start, where he was the person that was kind of like, this is kind of cool, I'm recording video and you're doing this audio and stuff. Maybe we could have like a platform where we, combine and get musicians around the area and do something like that. And I think that was like the initial starting point of it. And then I think in June is when we released our first video. We got a really talented singer from our school. Her name is Rita, to record the first. It was a cover of Misty, just like a jazz ballad. And that was really where we started it. And after that, we kind of thought, well, it's really cool getting people from our school, but it'd be even cooler if we like branched out and tried to get people from different communities and different schools and stuff, and just have like a, environment for them.
And you've worked with musicians from over 10 plus high schools and colleges across Pittsburgh, which is a huge accomplishment within itself.
Oh, thank you.
But what does collaboration necessarily mean to you? Are a lot of your projects collaborative, or was this like a big collaborative project that you just decided to spearhead?
Yeah, I think a lot of my projects are collaborative, and I feel like the most fun part about music in general and in all aspects is the collaboration, just being able to play with other people, record with other people, and just, bounce off like ideas and stuff. I think my favorite part of the shoots, just being in that room, and a lot of stuff, like even if we have like arranged a piece beforehand or stuff, a lot of things get changed just by the musicians being in there wanting to work differently with each other, and just creating new ideas up in the spot. I think that's the most fun part in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And having people to bounce ideas off of is also very helpful. You got to get through all the bad ones to get to a good one. So
that is true.
More minds together, more great ideas. So I'm really curious as to when was the moment, if you could pinpoint it, that you realized that this whole thing was bigger than just making covers, and it was more that you were building a community?
For a while, it was really just kind of like, oh, this is fun, this is a cool thing to do. The first moment where we kind of realized, oh, we're getting some traction is we released our Autumn Leaves video, and I think that was in October. And that's the first video that on YouTube, the first week, we reached like 10,000 views on that. And I think that's when we were like, okay, there might be an impact here, And then once we started getting like, people would start reaching out to us, because most of the part in like the first couple of months, we would have to like reach out to the musicians, and try to get them on board. But it was really cool when it started turning around. It's like, okay, we're getting like DMs now from like musicians in the community and stuff trying to be on it. I think that's like the first like, shifting point.
Very inspirational. So you have put out over 17 covers, earned millions of views, and you were even featured in The Uproar, your school's online newspaper, which is incredible. So what has been the most rewarding moment of this journey holistically?
That's a good question. I think the most rewarding moment, I don't know, hearing from, I know my mom told me a story of she was getting, I think her hair done somewhere, and one of the moms of someone who was on the lounge was also there getting her hair done, and she was just explaining how like grateful, her daughter was being on it, and how much it like impacted her, and there's been other instances too, hearing like not only from the musicians themselves, but their family or friends talking about how cool of an like experience it was, or being put out there and gaining confidence to post more, or to be more active with their singing or musical career. I think that's the most rewarding, knowing that we've been able to create a platform or community where people can gain confidence from and can be more, outgoing when it comes to their musical journey. I think that's the most rewarding part.
That's definitely a really big task to take on, and I love that you have, come to do that, giving people a space to just talk about yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
In a way that can't really be taken out of context, because I think that everyone loves having a space where they can truly be their authentic self.
Yeah.
And so that is definitely a great thing, and it's obviously very multifaceted and looks very different across media. Of course, every journey has its challenges, whether it's balancing school with music or learning the ins and outs of mixing and mastering, which I still have yet to conquer. or leading a group of musicians. What obstacles have you faced and how did you push through them?
Yeah, we faced a lot of obstacles during when you're working with that many people. You know, a lot of times it's during the school year too, so people have other things going on in their lives that like we don't know about. You know, so it's like I can hand out a couple pages of sheet music, but sometimes people just don't have time to look at it. You know, so there's been a lot of instances where on the shoot days it's difficult to get through some of the songs, just working together. I think that over the shoots and stuff we've developed a way to kind of go about it. I know a lot of times musicians can be nervous, having to play like on the spot in front of people, especially when we're recording like individually and stuff. I think that was probably our biggest challenge, but I think we worked through it with just we wanted to provide an environment that people felt, supported and safe. And it's like, I mean, we have time. So like, yeah, you can take like multiple takes, you can take your time. Sometimes we would go back and forth and work around people, and or tweak stuff even, just to make it work for them. I think when you're recording like that, there's always nerves. There's always people are at different levels of prepared, or even like stylistically too. A lot of times we got musicians in that weren't initially jazz musicians, so some of like the material that we were giving to them was kind of foreign and stuff. So just being like supportive, and giving them a supportive environment where they feel like they have time and they can express themselves and stuff. So
Yeah, most definitely. And I love that. And I think that the thing that has drawn me most to wanting to really do this interview and learn more about you is like the whole jazz component of it, because I unfortunately have worked with my fair share of SoundCloud rappers, as well as just other artists in more R&B, like trendy pop kind of fields. And I have not really, outside of a friend or two from school, known anyone part of like our generation that has been really like into jazz.
mm-hmm.
And I, as a very like old soul 90s 2000s R&B person,
Yeah,
was like, that's really cool. And so I've just enjoyed learning more about jazz in preparation for this.
yeah.
But also just looking at your work and different things that you've done, I love that. And I think we don't appreciate jazz enough.
I
And so
agree.
hopefully everyone who listens to this will go and look at some jazz. Now, what would you recommend as a good like starting point to someone who's not super familiar,
Mm-hmm.
but to like get in and just immerse themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I feel like a lot of times why people like our age or right now aren't getting into jazz is because a lot of it can be like hard to digest. It started in the '60s, so there's also a huge like discography of it too, and so it can be overwhelming. I'm trying to think a good album to get into it, like a straight jazz album or something that's kind of like jazz adjacent.
I don't know. In your serious, fully, backed, educated opinion,
Yeah,
as I don't know, I need a nickname for you. I feel like the jazz man is too on the nose.
the jazz man. Oh, I like
But
that.
okay, well, in your jazz man opinion, where should we start?
Well, I think there could be different approaches to it. I know a lot of people that I know that have like kind of gotten into jazz. They've gotten into it with music that's kind of like jazz adjacent. I know a popular artist right now is Leve.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of times like she has a lot of jazz, a lot of like bossa nova influence and stuff. And I've heard many times people who kind of listen to her stuff or stuff like that, and then dive deeper into it. I know that there's a lot of older people who would say, "Well, that's not jazz. That's not." Which I mean, it's kind of a combination of different genres, but it's good music. It's digestible, and it definitely has jazz adjacent ideas. I think that would be a good starting point. But if you're looking for something more considered like straightforward jazz, one of my favorite artists, his name is Stan Getz. He's like a sax player, and he's very melodic. Another one, Chet Baker, he's a trumpet player. I think people like him because he has a lot of melodic ideas. It's easier to digest. It's just smoother jazz. I think those two artists would probably be a good starting place to look at some of their stuff. People can get intimidated by, I don't know, like Coltrane and stuff. He's a sax player. I mean, he's probably one of the most influential sax players, but there's a lot going on there, so it's not always easy to jump into something like that. And I think when I started to really get into jazz, I kind of had to ease myself into it too. A lot of the stuff that I initially listened to was kind of jarring. A lot of the harmonies are really dense and dissonant. But I think if you ease yourself into it, you start to appreciate it more. And now, I mean, I keep looking for more dissonant music. So, it's just a process.
Now, we've talked about music and more music,
Mm-hmm.
which I love. I am curious, though, music adjacent, one who appreciates music so much. Can you dance to this music?
I cannot. I cannot dance. I think that's honestly like it should be an issue more studied, like musicians not dancing. Like I know a lot of musicians don't dance, and I'm one of them.
How can one
Unfortunately.
who masters instruments be rhythmically challenged when it comes to moving your own vessel?
I don't know. There's some sort of it would make sense, there's so much like hand-eye coordination going into playing an instrument, or the eye-body coordination is not there for me, unfortunately.
Well, we're going to have to work on that.
We-
Maybe
we
we'll do
are.
a follow-up.
A dance class.
Yes. Oh, that would be great.
That'd be fun.
So, looking ahead, you're heading off to Berklee College of Music,
Mhm.
which is a dream for many musicians that you are now obtaining. So, what are you most excited to learn and experience there?
I think what I'm most excited to experience there, it was my top school because last summer and the summer before then, I had they have these week summer programs that you can do. And so I did those for the last 2 summers. And my favorite part about that, I think, was not even the classes. I mean, the classes were great and they gave really great resources. But after the classes were over, they would, most of the students, they had these huge practice rooms in the dorms. Almost all the students would go there after the classes and just jam almost all night long. I remember I think it was the second night I was there, I was up till 5 a.m. in the practice rooms just with musicians from all over too. One of the great things is that it's 50% international, so a lot of the students are just from everywhere. So not only are we playing music and stuff, but just talking with them and learning how they, navigate in their lives and how it's different from yours. It's just a great environment. So I feel my favorite or part that I'm most looking forward to is just playing with other musicians and just learning about them, and just seeing how they approach it.
Well, I'm sure that you will flourish in that community.
Thank you.
As you have flourished in the one that you have curated here in Pittsburgh, that I'm sure many musicians are very appreciative for. I'm curious as to where you see yourself going with music production and audio engineering in the future, maybe post Berklee graduation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think career-wise, where I'm at right now, I definitely do want to be working in a studio along the lines of an audio engineer or something of that sort. I'm not too sure what role I would be in because, of course, you can go to production or labels and stuff, or even companies like Sony and stuff, and work with them. So there's a lot of options out there. So I'm not too quite sure, but I would like to work in a studio. I like the equipment. I like being in that environment after I graduate from Berklee.
Do you strictly stick to covers, or do you also write your own music?
Yeah, I have written a lot of. I have a friend who actually is rooming with me at Berklee. His name is Ryder Bowles, and he's a vocalist. And so me and him, over the past couple of years, we've done a lot of original stuff together. Different artists in my area and stuff I've created original works with and stuff. And that's just as fun as making covers. But yeah, I do both. I think in terms of stuff I have out on the internet, it's all covers at this point, but I have worked with other people for original stuff.
So maybe after you're, on campus and immersed in all of this excess culture and community, we'll see some solo projects dropped.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to do that. I'd love to get some of my playing out there too. I feel like most of the stuff I have out there is just production, but it'd be cool to also release some stuff.
That would be awesome. I'll definitely be on the lookout for that. Maybe you'll have an awakening of some sort during one of these 5 a.m. sessions. Do you sing?
Do I sing?
Curious.
I don't sing. I'm actually so jealous of people who can sing because I feel like there's a lot of musicians that their playing also translate to their control of their voice. It's all intertwined with each other, but I cannot sing. I did have to sing for the audition, and that was something. It was an experience, but no, I'm not lucky enough to be able to sing. But that would be cool if I could.
Just for strictly research purposes, this audition isn't videotaped, would it?
Oh, no, it's not. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any copies out on the internet. Thank God.
Darn it. Well, lucky for me, I'll have a friend at Berklee. Maybe I can get the inside scoop. But I do share your pain of not being able to sing. I write a lot of poetry.
Oh, really?
I do, yes.
Oh,
I am
cool.
a writer. Yeah, that's one of my things is I wish I could sing because the way that my poetry flows in spoken word and things, very very rhythmic, still in the same vein, but man, if I could sing it,
yeah.
Oh, goodness.
I feel you.
But that is my R&B soul also just kind of coming back at me.
Mm-hmm.
Struggles we share. All right, Evan, One thing about this podcast is that it is not just about spotlighting excellence, though that is a major part of it. It is about showing other young people what is possible. So, what is some advice that you would give someone who's just starting out with their passion and maybe unsure if they can really make it?
A big thing is confidence, and especially when it comes to playing instruments and stuff, it's a lot of times people get very insecure about it, and especially with jazz too, because like the whole thing is like soloing, so it's like you're on the spot and you have to make these ideas on the spot and like you're putting yourself all the way out there. I feel like a lot of times people kind of shy away from it because of that. It's intimidating, and I did for a while too. I played guitar for 2 years, and for first year I was really interested in jazz, but I wouldn't improvise at all. I would just comp or play behind improvisers and stuff. I wouldn't do it at all, and I feel like part of that process you just got to throw yourself in there. And like the first gigs I did and stuff with improvisation, it's sometimes it's not always how you want it to go or how you expect yourself to sound. But the best way to learn and the best way to grow is just putting yourself out there. Most musicians will be appreciative if you just try, like sometimes just trying is better than, being too scared to. So I feel like my advice for musicians specifically, any genre it applies to, is just put yourself out there, don't not do something because you're scared or intimidated. The best way to learn is just going for it. So
Excellent advice. I'm sure that that will touch many people and fall on some ears that definitely need to hear it. Now, for any listeners who would love to find you and your work over the years and things that you've done in the past, would you be willing to drop us an Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Twitter, TikTok?
yeah, of course. Social media I use the most is Instagram, and so my personal is my last name Dozier. It's DOZIIERR. And then the lounge account is at the lounge PGH, all one word. And yeah, so that's really where I post most of my stuff. There's the lounge account on YouTube, which is the same name. But I think that's really the only thing that I've put any content out on.
Well, those are my questions. So now I turn it over to you. Is there
Mhm.
anything else that you want to talk about? Any other wisdom you would like to depart onto our fabulous listeners?
Um, I don't know if you're playing an instrument or you're getting into playing an instrument, always I think a cool thing is just expand. Try to play different genres, try to do different things. I feel like the biggest hump in my career is really just not expanding enough. Not being versatile enough. Even with jazz, I catch myself sometimes where it's like I'm only playing jazz, and I do like a pop gig or something. It's like, what am I doing? So I think I don't know. I guess it could go for anyone, but musicians in general, I think just instruments are cool things. They can play a lot of different styles of music. So if you have the opportunity, I think branching out would be a good idea. So yeah, that's all I have. I think.
Awesome. Wonderful, great, amazing, fabulous. You don't sing, you don't dance.
I don't sing. I don't dance. It's unfortunate. I wish I could. I really wish I could.
Perhaps we'll get you into rapping.
That's. I don't think I'd be good at that either. I don't know. I think that would be. It's kind of like singing. It's just not melodic. It's a skill. It's hard.
Like talking fast.
Rhyming on the spot. It's hard.
It's rhyming on the spot is so not hard.
Wait, why don't you rap? Do you rap?
I mean, rapping and poetry are like hand in hand.
Yeah. So yeah.
Sure. Maybe. But this isn't about me. This is about you.
Uh-huh.
Well, if you have nothing else to impart upon the listeners, Evan, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your journey. You are proof that excellence isn't just about personal success, but it's about creating opportunities for others, building community, and following your passions with persistence. For those listening, be sure to check out Evan's platform, The Lounge PGH, on YouTube and Instagram to hear the amazing music he has and his collaborations and everything else he is creating. This has been Excellence in Motion, the Youth Spotlight series. I'm Angelina, and I cannot wait to bring you more stories of young people making a difference. Until next time, keep chasing excellence, and remember, it's emotion.